Today on the 25th of January, the weather's been mild and I haven't needed to use the heater. And you can see the koi down there. They're about 5 feet down, resting in the pond. And the water's still all running under the cold frame. A quick peek under the cold frame. And look, wouldn't you know that some parts of the yellow flag are still green? This is one of the cold frames. There's no ice. And you can see some of the fish down there. The cold frame really helps. Just a simple cold frame. And it really helps to keep the ice down. And obviously, that yellow flag didn't totally die back, which is amazing. And then I usually put rocks on there, but what happens is the snow will fall and weigh it down. And I do put rocks on there to hold it down. But I just wanted to show you what it looked like. So it's just a simple, crude frame, a cattle panel cold frame with some plastic laid over top and held down by rocks. And it helps to keep the cost down of the heater. It's not plugged in. I'm not using it right now. I haven't used it for a couple weeks. The temperatures have been fairly mild in the daytime and sometimes above freezing. Like, still chilly, but above freezing. But today it's, I think, just about slightly below freezing. And everybody's doing well out here. And there's still snow in my yard. Oh, that was cold out there. I had to come back in. My hands are cold. I'm just wearing a t-shirt. That's it. Just a t-shirt. And yeah, I was starting to freeze. So anyway, because the wind is chilly. The wind is chilly out there. All is well inside my greenhouse, and I have a coffee. Canadians love their Timmies. I know. Actually, I had a Timmy coffee this morning, and then I ran out and I made my own Timmy coffee and put it back in the cup. I've been working on the fairy beds. I've got some fresh moss. Look at how cozy that looks. Like, yeah, and there's little mini lights that come on at night. It's super cute. And I found this little teddy bear and I thought, oh, it's cute. You know, that could be the little fairy's teddy bear. Who knows? Who knows for sure what fairies do? And yeah, there's mice in there. I don't know if you can see them. Oh, well. Yeah, so everything in Canada is coming quite nice. And here are the wild sub-minima guppies. They're very, very tiny. Most of them in here are the wild ones, although there are a few larger ones that I did scoop out that were crosses. But the actual size of a wild sub-minima guppy, that would be a female. And the males are even smaller. Where are the males? There are males that are bigger, the crosses. Oh, there's a little wild male. Right there, very tiny. And I moved this tank out here from last year. I set it up and I haven't changed any fish or added any. I had wild sub-minima guppies, the really tiny, tiny ones. And I crossed them with some fancy guppies, large fancy guppies that I had, a few of them. I had to put the females in because the wild males hate the big tails on the males that are fancy, and they tend to pick on them. Yeah, so that's that little tank. This is what I seem to have produced in this tank. They're not the most colorfulest, but if you look close, they're pretty colorful. I mean, they're just a different type of guppy. What do you do with all the guppies? It's like, Guppies are everywhere. And the greenhouse is doing nice and cozy today. I love my fairy gardens. Absolutely love my fairy gardens. And I'm always working on something. And I also I put mini lights inside here. I don't know, they probably won't shine. Oh, there, you can see them. So there's mini lights in this one. I think it's just extra cute. And that is a real plant. That's the button plant. I planted that I did that like 3 months ago, and it's starting to make air roots as well. And of course, down in the fairy gardens here, there's the little guppy pond. It has a tiny, tiny little heater right there, and a tiny, tiny little pump. And I have the pump angled down so it doesn't splash the water too much, or it'll make waves and overflow that little tiny bowl. A tiny bowl of guppies. And you know, they're doing really well in this old bowl. The snails like it. The walls are nice and clean. The hornwort's growing really good in there. And it's not a very big bowl. I mean, it's not super small, but it's half the size of the other guppy pond because I needed something smaller. That was the old blue tub I used last year. So yeah, it's doing really well. And let's take a look at the spiders, what I've done with the spiders. I take shoots of the spiders, and back in September or October, I planted this spider into the fish tank here. Over here, you can see it has some white roots, but they're thinner because if you look over here, the sun shines on them, and the older roots tend to get algae, and then they die back. Right, because those roots need to grow in the dark. But in the filter box here, in this Marine Land filter box, it's a dark filter, right? So the sun doesn't shine through into the water, and I've got thick, white, healthy roots. Look at the thick, and they're growing like crazy. And the whole plant, look at how stiff and rigid it is. It's doing like much better in here. And even the overall color of the spider in the filter box is deeper and richer than the more pale version over here. So obviously this box is acting like a hydroponic filter. The water's flowing. And the roots are kept in the dark, so the flowing water and the fact that the roots are protected in the dark from algae keeps these plants healthy and thriving. You can see how nice they're doing. And I even have a little one hanging there. We'll see how it does. But so the ones that are outside of the filter box, right, because the roots are getting exposed to the sun and the algae grows on them, so they won't have as healthy roots. So you won't have as healthy plant. I mean, it still looks good. It's just not growing really fast. Whereas this one here, I've noticed a big difference. Like a huge difference. They're perky. They're perked right up since the last video I took. Yeah, so that works really well. And of course, I got a million guppies in there. And all the guppies are doing well in this tank. There's lots of pretty colors. Lots of pretty fish. And this is just because, you know, when they're breeding outside in the pond, they breed like crazy. They become like rabbits, and then you get a multitude of different sizes and shapes and colors. Some with big long tails, some with split tails, some with just colorful bodies. They're all different. compared to the wild subspecies guppies, and then the offspring. So we'll let this tank run another year and we'll see what the guppies look like. They have, some of these have developed nice tails. Some of them have long tails, but the overall fish, they're smaller than the ones in the other tank. And there still is some that appear to be the wild species still in that tank, the smaller ones. Yeah, that's that little fish tank I just moved in here. I know, my favorite place to hang out, soak up the sun, drink some coffee, and relax and play with the fairies. It's good for the blood pressure. And that is just another beautiful day in my greenhouse. It might not be fancy, and I built it myself, and it's not perfect. You know, I'm not a professional carpenter, but I made it work, you know, with my crude equipment and doing it all by myself. So, and with just my own imagination, you know, like, I've never built a small house before, and I did this a couple of years ago as a greenhouse, and I just expanded it. Well, that was a few years ago. Before that, I used to just have a plastic greenhouse, one of those pop-up ones, and I used to cover it like crazy to try to run it all winter with layers and layers of plastic and stuff. But no, this one's working really well. Everything's warm. Everything's growing really nice. It's nice to have the succulents on a turntable. That way you can see them all. I have most of them on turntables, like this one here too is on a turntable. Right. And this one also is on a turntable. The only thing is this plant here is grown too long, so I can't turn it all the way. I'll have to trim these back. So yeah, and my money tree's doing well. And that is a beautiful day in Canada.